Welcome to Good Game Edmonton. I'm your host, Cory Sellar. My next guest is a Juilliard-trained playwright, an award-winning comedian, and a narrative designer and writer who's worked on Edmonton's own The Low Road and Vancouver's Tales Noir Preludes. He's recording his first stand-up album live at the Grindstone Theatre this December and co-runs a weekly comedy show at Black Bar Tavern. He's basically an Edmonton art scene in a box. Please welcome to Good Game Edmonton, Leif Oleson-Cormack.
Hey, Cory, thanks for having me.
Love it.
So when your parents named you Sellarcast as your middle name, did you feel that you were forced to become a podcaster? Was that...
No.
Well,
I mean, Sellarcast was just kind of a nickname that I gave myself.
Well, you're really trying to make it stick.
I'm really trying to make it stick. Cellar, I was born with Cellar. Sellarcast was just inevitable. Watching George Lucas films, need to have that name plastered all over. Yeah.
I feel like your backdrop should be just like a cellar, like just like a crypt in the background.
Just a wine really cellar, like old medieval, old England.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
my
then you do the voice.
British.
It wouldn't work. It would be a little, I think you'd get a little trying.
Yeah, maybe I have to talk Shakespearean or something.
Yeah.
Well, I do appreciate you joining me today. I have to say this is the second time we've chatted as we crossed paths earlier this year, where you were the face of the 2025 Alberta Game Series back in early October. Of course, for those who don't know, it was a two-day event packed with programming featuring industry speakers, a pitch competition, game showcase, networking, and from what I heard, an after party where the drinks were probably flowing. I wasn't there, so I can't comment, but
missed out.
I clearly missed out.
They were really flowing. Yes, it was.
They were really flowing. There we go. So, Leif,
it's great because you get to see, like, with a game event, you see all these introverts like slowly become extroverts, like for the first time, all at once. It's weird. It's a lot of big talk.
It's a lot of big talk. I feel like that reminds me of the intro with The Last of Us when everyone started turning into zombies.
It kind of was. It had that thing, like it was like yeast. It's the beer.
It was
that is taking over their brains.
Oh my god! It was bread. It was bread bakery.
Yes.
For The Last of Us and bar for AGS. Okay, now we got that covered. Cool. Well,
I just cracked it. The Last of Us is a metaphor for alcoholism. That's what it is.
I love it. No, that makes way more sense now. Well, we cracked it. Well, I guess that's our show.
That's it. We're out of time.
We're out of time.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
It's just an emergency update from the Sellarcast. All right.
God. Well, in all seriousness, though, how did you get wrangled into hosting this year's games conference?
Well, I think it's because I gave a talk at Game Camp before. Is that what it's called? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was funny, and Vanessa Capito recommended me because she knew I was a comedian. Yeah.
Nice.
And I work in the game industry. Yeah.
Right.
It seemed like a perfect match for me.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to your game experience in a bit here, but I just wanted to kind of touch on, what obviously being host, you're coming in from a different perspective versus all the attendees that are going to be coming in, like myself, who I was just mainly a sponge of just trying to soak up information and seeing what people were talking about. But I guess from your standpoint, kind of in that unique role as host of the 2-day conference, what was your experience like in particular? What were you hearing throughout the 2 days? Did anything stand out? Anything like that?
I mean, it feels like the scene very much is in flux, and it was a lot of people responding to that and trying to create their own. I think like a lot of the advice that was given during those 2 days was towards like building your own company and not expecting the cavalry to come in and save you, because what is the cavalry now? It's the Saudis owning EA. That's Jared Kushner owning EA. It's not great. Like, I think making your own. What?
We're fine. Yeah,
we're fine. Yeah,
fine.
The amount of cope that was happening was great. It was interesting to see. I had so many ideas for jokes about that. I was advised very accurately, not to go into them. I had a friend who does he's a Arabic comic, and we were going to bring him in as the new president of EA, and they're like, no, everyone's gonna. No, what's the matter with you?
Director's cut of AGS.
Yeah. If only. I still think it's funny, but I could see how some people would be sensitive to that.
That's fair.
I think like people want to be creating their own things and following their own visions. And it seemed like a lot of the advice that was given throughout those 2 days was about that, about how to ship your own content, how to build a studio from scratch, how to take a indie studio to like a AA studio. And I thought that was very helpful because often when you go to these things, it's often like, here's how to get your resume in order. Like I went to tons when I lived in New York, and it was all just like, oh, we have someone from Gameloft coming in and they're going to look at your resume and be like, this is why you're not Gameloft material. And I think, especially for Edmonton, I think Edmonton is very great at creating things from scratch. And because the cost of living is low, and because we have a great artistic community and a great like games community, we are able to create small things that are good instead of like giant things. But we often, because of the shadow of BioWare, which is a huge monolith that's very successful, there is like a chasm between those two. And I think that's starting. I think there's more focus now on the indies, and I love that.
Yeah. No, it's really great to see, and it kind of, I don't know, I continue to tell people that, with the indie studios and everything, it feels like the broader startup and tech community of Edmonton of what it was, just over a decade ago, almost. I feel like that's where it's at realistically, and obviously there's so much room to grow, a lot more work to do, but I mean there's a lot happening, and that's why I feel like things like this show, trying to put a spotlight on what are people working on in our backyard, and how are they getting it to a broader audience to just be successful and help grow the space. But in terms of the AGS theme, it was around sustainable indies getting to that AA status. But in terms of sustainability and all that, in the context of, being a creative yourself in a few different disciplines, what does that mean to you? What does sustainability mean to you, so far in your career?
I mean, it's something I always struggle with because it really isn't. The arts world is not sustainable in any way. There's always someone that will undercut you. You're at the mercy of grants or like just lotteries. Like I do the Fringe a lot. Your whole summer, basically your whole year is decided by whether you are picked for the lottery. So it's an arbitrary kind of lottery, which is great because anyone can get in. But at the same time, you're just like, I guess I'm not doing any shows this summer. That's 4 months of work gone if I don't get that selected. And it's all all very tenuous. So I mean, I think that's why I have such a varied career, is because I've just had to adapt to the circumstances and be able to be nimble to the situation. Because if you're a working class artist, like that's what you like. You don't have that trust fund of like, oh, I can hang around and wait. It's just like, okay, I gotta learn how to write for games. I gotta learn how to like write for documentaries. I need to learn how to do no gig really pays for everything unless you're in like a big studio or something like that, which has its own drawbacks as well.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Sustainability kind of leads well into the next thing here. And one of the probably two topics that everyone was not wanting to really talk about during AGS, and that was, of course, artificial intelligence, AI. That and tax credits. Obviously, we didn't want to get into details.
There were government people there, so
there were
government
was a little
people. Yeah. But there were some brave souls that did like go up, and they were. I enjoyed watching that. That was, I couldn't comment on it, but I was like, okay, yes, that's
yeah. It was very fun. It was just kind of those memes of just like like Jim from The Office.
Yeah, it was interesting watching the audience while that was happening.
Yeah. Oh, I bet.
But yeah, I mean, the tax credits are like, I think, essential because of the way, the reason Edmonton has such a great arts community is because like we have the EAC and the AFA, and if you're at like a huge level, you can also get Canada Council grants. So there is a huge amount of sustainability in Edmonton within that system.
there was definitely more conversation around investment at AGS that I felt was cut short a little bit. And, we didn't quite get a chance to necessarily dive as deep, especially from an angel investment side of things. Was it mainly because of the fire alarm? No, that was day one. Day one, just with scheduling, or whatever the case it was. But having a bit of the investment conversation cut short, we haven't closed the door on that discussion. It needs to continue to happen to help see how we can have other ways to provide investment towards studios, and of course, seeing where maybe that goes in terms of other aspects of digital arts in general. And so forth. From what you can, I think, speak more on is really the AI side of things, because that conversation, that's applicable for anyone in any industry. We're seeing those effects, whether it's positive or negative, however you want to look at them, and depending on who you talk to. But when we look at the creative scene, we look at the art scene, especially with the conversation of games from your standpoint and your experience, and being at AGS as host, what is sort of your take on AI as it stands, with your background with narrative design, and how are you using it consistently? Is there a sense of trying to implement more responsible AI?
With AI, I mean, it
feels
a big
like conversation.
And I think like a lot of people like to be very binary with it. It's just like, it's eating the water. Get it out of here. Or
it's poisoning the well.
Great. And I think, I mean, it's a tool. It's a tool that's never going to go away. Like it's very useful. There's no denying that. I think like it's going to tank the economy, the amount of investment. It's like there's no way this is not a bubble, and it's going to pop very soon. It's like the streaming services where there was like 1,000 streaming services all at once, and they're all creating all these TV shows, and way too many. There's like 1,000 TV shows every year, and no one watched them, and now they're gone, and it's just this huge waste of money. And I mean, that's I mean, I wouldn't invest in AI right now just because of that, but it's killed all the entry-level narrative design jobs, for sure. It's wiped out, like, I mean, if we're talking about games, the writing community is probably the one that suffered the most because it's probably the least valued. I mean, it's often the job that is hired last, which is ridiculous because I think like really great writing in video games, it comes from like marrying it with the mechanics very early on in the process, like, and responding to the mechanics. It's not like trying to make a 3-act movie as a game. I think that's chasing like another form's idea, like the Ubisoft model of just like, oh, we're going to make a movie and this is the character. And it's just like, okay, great. It's like I watched a movie, I had to do things in between. Wonderful. But you have a game like Her Story. If you played it, it's just like, oh, okay, it's great. I mean, it's a very artistic game, but it takes like one very simple mechanic and the writing comes out of that and you are piecing things together and slowly finding it out. And it's responding to the mechanics. I mean, Stanley Parable also is just like a great example of that, where you're responding to the mechanics of the game. But I think a lot of the time, it's almost treated like a Winamp skin. There's just something that's slapped over whatever the game devs have made, and you can't really add much to it after the fact. You can only kind of just, put some gossamer and like, okay, here's some characters and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's a very lazy way to create games. I think like great games involve the narrative very early on. And that's an attitude that I think has been doubled down on with AI because they're like, oh, you know what? I, as the game designer, I can just, quickly tell AI what it is. And it's good enough because I don't value. I think like that's the problem with AI. It's eliminating jobs that people don't value, but after the fact, they realize how bad it is. Like, I was telling you this earlier, but in the comedy community, everyone has started, all these small shows have started using AI to make their comedy posters. And at first, like for the first 3 weeks, no one really noticed what an AI poster was. They were just like, oh, that looks good. Who'd you get to do that? Oh, it was AI. Oh, that's cool. And now you can tell in a second if something is AI. It has that stupid flat style, that the little bubble. It just immediately reads as AI. And the second you see that, that's not going to be a good show. And it rarely is. Like, it's always kind of a bad show. And it's just that lack of care or thought that is put into that. It kind of seeps into everything. So it is almost like a red flag for the whole project, I think. If you're willing to outsource all of that to a machine, a
Yeah.
creative act, what else are you willing to outsource? And it kind of shows your attitude. But at the same time, I get it. Especially like there are creative ways to use AI in games. You could make like an NPC that would normally have 3 lines, have like, 1,000, and you could go in a bunch of different directions. But at the same time, if you're going to do that, you need someone to curate that. You need someone to almost act like a director, like Mike Leigh does with his films, where he treats the AI like an improviser. You still have to quality control. You still need someone with taste to know what those things are. And that's writing. That is writing in a way. It's just not in that direct way that we're used to. So I think there's a lot of interesting ways you could use it. But I mean, the thing is, like, you're never going to get anything truly innovative out of AI, because it is copying stuff that's already existed. I had a thing in the presentation I gave at AGS about how it's like the Wayne Gretzky quote. The reason he's like, good players go where the puck is. Great players go where the puck will be. And AI is just going where the puck used to be. Like, it's just taking stuff that already existed and like repurposing it. Which, I mean, you can get but I would say the most creative stuff that comes out of AI is the mistakes. These odd, weird things that come out of it. That's the things that kind of I find compelling. One of my favorite writers, George Saunders. Do you know him? He wrote Civil War Land and Bad Decline. He's very funny. He's a short story writer. And he has this quote he always brings up, that no great idea happens on its original plane of intention. So if you're sitting down to write a poem about flowers and you wrote a poem about flowers, who gives a shit? Because that wasn't the point. But it's like, when you get lost in it and it becomes something else that you weren't expecting as an author, that's where the real creative juice is. He says, like, none of his great stories, he doesn't call them great, he's not a narcissist, but none of his best stories started that way, like started with his original intention. It's never just that. And like, AI is just giving you your original intention, which if you want that shortcut, if that's serviceable, that's fine. But I think the real art, that happens in between, and in like the frustration and all the in between, and like surprising yourself in the process. So yeah, I don't know. It's going to take all our jobs. We're all screwed.
We're all screwed. It's the Terminator. It's coming.
Yeah,
it's coming. Or The Last of Us.
And how do you feel about it?
I mean,
do you use it a lot?
I do. Like, it's one of those things where in your job now, at least for me, it's becoming an expectation of using AI to help, fast track the work to try and speed things up, but it's still ensuring you still have that human, quality check, quality assurance and all that, which is great. But I mean, yeah, it's definitely a learning curve, because they're changing, they're updating, it's becoming like streaming services, arguably, because there's more AIs popping up, so different AI models, and they do things differently. So it's trying to, like, one is maybe a little bit better for creative writing, maybe the other one's better for very detailed research paper style work. So it's like, you're jumping around trying to find the best thing and try to get something out of it. I do enjoy using AI. It's definitely a huge help when I'm just trying to flesh out an idea and, flesh out an initial draft for certain things, whether it's for work or for the podcast in my spare time. But it's one of those things where it does feel inevitable, because for me, I think of it as social media, where it's that extra new component that everyone needs to get on. Otherwise, they're going to fall behind. They're going to get left behind, and it's going to be like, helping your grandparents figure out how to use their laptop. It keeps drawing. I keep seeing it go back to those types of parallels. So it's trying to find that niche of how am I able to use AI efficiently that I can still create that new workflow. And I think that's kind of the tough spot that I'm in right now, is figuring out that new workflow, that new mindset of how to use it properly for the outcomes that I intend to use it for. But at the same time, it's interesting hearing such different interactions, different reactions to it. For some, maybe a misunderstanding of its usage in some ways, but also understanding the pain points too of, these are destroying jobs. They're redefining industries, but even just like other things in the past, how can it create new jobs to help leverage the AI or machine learning so that it's creating more automated processes so that you are, maybe finding something that was completely overlooked and it completely enhances your project or your, just overall day-to-day work. But obviously it's a little more case by case, so I feel like it's always hard to have the discussion with some folks because everyone comes from a different perspective because they all work in a different industry. It's good and bad in so many different ways.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No, I mean, let's go positive here.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Because I have benefited a lot from AI, I would say, mainly on the business side of just like having to send emails. And,
oh gosh,
it's like having a kind of a dumb assistant, but like an encouraging assistant that, one of the things that really blocks me in my day-to-day is just like sending emails asking for things is so humiliating. Like, it is the worst thing in the world. Like, I do not enjoy, pitching myself for anything or like asking to have a weekend at like a club or something. But just being able to say like, hey, could you write this for me? And then seeing it and just being like, yeah, that's not the worst thing. But like, as I'm writing it, I want to kill myself. Like, I hate it so much. But if it's already there and it's just like, okay, my assistant wrote this, like, it's almost like a point of removal. Like the AI is McKinsey doing something awful that I actually want to do but can't bring myself to do. That's what I'm doing with it. I've definitely benefited from that, like being able to like tour my Fringe show and just like being able to send out press releases and figuring all that logistic stuff out has been incredible. I haven't found it very useful for like creative ideas. Like, I've tried, talking to it, brainstorming ideas. I've never really gotten a single joke out of it. Like, I've never gotten like a good bit talking. And I've tried like all of them, and it just doesn't quite get it. And if it is, it's like a C level where I don't feel it. Like, I don't. I'll be like, oh, I'll try this out tonight, and it's just like, no, this is bad. This is because also I didn't make it, so I don't have that heart for it at the same time. But yeah, I mean, it allows like low level, like indies to operate at a higher level than they are, I think.
Right.
Like, even just giving that my opening monologues at AGS, I had some like slideshows and stuff. I had like some like, Jon Stewart like graphics pop up that were parodies. Like, those were AI. There's no way. If I had to hire someone to draw those like parody pictures of Alberta games.
Yeah.
I would have lost money on this. And it did allow me to work at a more, not professional, but like more impressive way. And because it is just a throwaway gag, I don't feel bad about that. I would much rather have been able to hire someone to do that. But no, I mean, yeah.
Plays into the satire, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a conversation that's never going to end because, I mean, it's changing so rapidly. I think just trying to keep up with it and just seeing what its latest capability is always the fun discovery of like, is it getting scarier? Is it getting more convenient? It's always evolving in that sense. And yeah, I mean, I feel like we're going to get to that point, though, where there's going to be those comedy posters where it's getting a little tough to tell the difference. And that,
I think we will get there.
We're going to get there. But I mean, for the indie groups, not so much maybe necessarily utilizing that so that we can continue to support local artists and stuff like that. Because I think generative AI is definitely the scary one. But yeah,
I think there is something that like human beings kind of can just sense in their gut when something is created with passion and when something is being derivative. I mean, when you watch like, like a David Lynch film or like a movie that's trying to be like David Lynch, like where it's just like, let's be weird. And like it just doesn't have that same feel. Like, there was some Netflix show, I think it was like Red Cherry Cola. I forget what it was, but it was like, it's Lynchian. And it's just like, oh, you play jazz music and you have like red velvet in the back and you think you're being Lynchian. Oh, and people are being weird for no reason. Like, no, when I watch Lynch, like, I don't understand it, but I know that there's meaning underneath it and there's something heartfelt. And I think like there is something, like there's soul. I think there is, I mean, this is very woo-woo, but I think there is soul in art, and you can sense it. And I don't think you're going to get that. Even no matter how good AI gets, it's not going to have that. You're not going to be able to make like a great movie that like resonates with people and the human experience with. You'll be able to make Michael Bay slop, sure. But
yeah, sure. No, I think that's the biggest takeaway for me, and we'll wrap up here and we'll kind of keep going. Regardless whether it's my job when it comes to like marketing and storytelling from that lens, or just more on the creative arts side of things, whether it's game development, game design, comedy, all of that, there always needs to be that human element so that you can still make sure that there's that heart, there's that soul to it. And, it always needs that quality check from a human to refine. And it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Cause this is in some ways the fact that I didn't have this going through K to 12 college, it feels like now it makes me feel super old, and I'm only 31.
But I think we're lucky to have not grown up that way,
Yeah, I think so. I agree.
Can't imagine what that would do to your mind to like, even just like I grew up before the internet and everything was boring. Like you had to be bored, and that forced you to be creative in certain ways. Yeah. And here, like now you can be constantly entertained forever. I don't know why someone would even be a creator.
Yeah.
Other than for the
creator.
Attention, yeah. Because you could just constantly be entertained or amused. I mean, I used to like focus deeply on certain pieces of art because there wasn't much else. Like I think we're around similar generation. Like The Simpsons, like the way people focused on The Simpsons and knew every single joke and rewatched it, and it just became this thing. It became like a style guide for my generation. I think like focusing deeply on something instead of just watching a ton of stuff, I think that you get more out of that. I think you go deeper instead of just seeing the surface all the time.
Yeah. No, 100%.
I'm being so pretentious. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
This guy's a comedian?
No.
Does he think he's Lydia Tarr? Get out of here.
It's fine. Because for me, though, as soon as
was
you
the Juilliard in me coming out.
Oh, okay. That explains it now. That there it is. Well, speaking of the Juilliard, rewinding things back a little bit before AI was a thing, you were obviously Juilliard-trained playwright, who helped design video games for a living, narratively, of course.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not a comedian, so this is just a very open-ended joke with no punchline. What does a Juilliard professor say when you tell them you're taking your elite playwriting skills into video games?
None of them know about it.
None of them know about it.
No. I think they were just like, okay. Yeah, I think that was the vibe. They were just like, well, at least he's getting work, I guess. I don't know.
Well, that's different.
It was something I always wanted to do. Like, even when I was there, it was something I wanted to look into. Like, when you get to Juilliard, like, they kind of give you an agent. And I was just like, what about video games? They're like, what? No. I kind of fell into it. I did some voiceover work for XGen Studios on their game Super Motherload. I played a roughneck called Carl Redden. Then after I had graduated, they were working on The Low Road, and they were like, I think they were already like 2 years into it, and the writer they had was just not delivering any scripts, and they needed someone new. And I had my Juilliard degree, so they're like, okay, yeah, you can write it. And it was amazing. Like, it was just like, I was full, like, just thrown into this world that I didn't quite get. I was very lucky to be given this opportunity. And it was just like, it was amazing. Like, I felt like, because like I would come up with an idea, and then like later, like our art director Scott would just have like pictures of the location like the next day, and I'd be like, oh wow, I feel like Spielberg, this is amazing. And it was just, oh my god, it was a dream. And just learning, because like I've always been a huge gamer, like, and like I grew up with the LucasArts tradition. Like I was obsessed with LucasArts. Like when we talk about like deeply going into a work of art, like Day of the Tentacle, Fate of Atlantis, and Sam & Max, like I obsessively played those over and over again. And like I just love that genre of storytelling, and The Low Road was trying to be in that style of storytelling, so it seemed like a natural fit. And yeah, it was great. What was the question?
Oh no, no.
Oh, how disappointing were it? You know what was weird though? Because I thought they would be more disappointed that I started doing comedy. And my teacher, Christopher Durang, he was like this very accomplished like playwright. When I told him that, he was just like, "Oh my God, that's so great." He was just like so excited because like he was kind of like a comedian in a way. Like he co-hosted Saturday Night Live once.
Wow.
With Sigourney Weaver, and he was just like so supportive. I was like, I did not expect that at all. He's like, no, that's wonderful. I can't wait to see it. It was nice. It was, yeah.
That's refreshing. Like,
Yeah,
not the
because I was just like,
expect.
I kind of mumbled it. I was like, I'm kind of doing stand-up comedy, you know? He was like, wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, just a
No,
lovely
I love
man.
that. Awesome. Yeah, well, I mean, going back to the Low Road, which with XGen Studios, it's a point and click adventure. And looking at the press kit, it was saying there's over 32,000 words of dark comedic dialogue. I'm curious, like, kind of going back to that writer's room for that, what was the creative process like, of pulling inspiration, or, at that point in time, they're needing a new writer, a new narrative approach. But, how did you approach it going in, not really having much experience with a game, creating it?
I mean, they already had like a vertical slice of like a whole level already made, and it was like meticulously made. So it was like, okay, what do we do here? It was like, oh, this dollhouse is already created with these characters. Yeah. What do we make with them to make a story and then build it out from there? Yeah, it was a lot of reverse engineering and figuring out how to make it a story-based game within what they had and continuing it further. So, I mean, I play adventure games all the time, like especially point and click. There is like a great community. Like people think that those have died off, but they haven't. Like Wadjet makes like they launch like 2 or 3 very classic like LucasArts style kind of games every year, and I play all of them because they're great. But I basically kind of just built out from there, and it was a lot of like influences. Like it was a corporate espionage game set in the world of cars. So, and it's in the 70s. So I watched a bunch of documentaries. I was like, who killed the electric car, or like the water-based car? There was something about a car that runs on water. And there was a lot of theories that like they destroyed it because it was too, it would destroy the oil industry. And I was like, okay, we can do a spin on that where it's like organic. It's an organic car that runs on plants, like the plants. And we just kind of built it out from there. What I found really interesting about the process, though, and what made me love creating for games, was writing for games. It's a lot like writing for like film in the 40s or even the 20s, where you can create a new grammar with mechanics. You can do things that haven't been done before. Because I mean, with film or plays, especially plays, like it's all been done. Everything's been done. You're not innovating. Like you're not going to be the Eisenstein of theater. It's pretty much everything that you could possibly do has been done. Everything in film, it is like there's a structure to film that is very, but you can make like I was talking about Her Story. Like that is like a very clear mechanic and a way of telling, and like people will reference that forever. And that's very exciting. And there was one section of the game that I'm being such a blowhard here, but we had like a file system where people were looking at files. And I was like, the way to bloat a game, and this is often how people think about writing, is just like, oh, this will add to our runtime. So just add more dialogue and not making it active. And that's how you get like that Assassin's Creed thing where they're just speaking for hours about like history. And you're just like, can I just go kill someone? Can I go? You're just like mashing this button, just trying to get through this. Skip. Because they want that runtime. They want that technical runtime, which is like, okay, great. I would rather pay for a shorter game that's dynamic all the way through than a long game that just talks at you. So I was like, how do I make this active? Because like we did have a certain runtime that we had to make. And I took this file folder and we made these conversation puzzles where basically you had to manipulate someone over the phone. It's just you're looking through these files, this dossier on these people, kind of papers, please, like, and then you have like your telltale dialogue style of like 4 dialogue choices, but you are using this information to manipulate the person, and there's so many paths you can go. I was like, oh, this is a new thing. I haven't seen this before. Like that was one of the things that got good press when the game came out. Kotaku was like, this is one of my favorite puzzle games of the year. And I was like, oh my God. So it like, and it was just by random discovery. That's what I'm saying. Oh, time back to AI. Oh my God, the blowhard worked. because no one set in to make that, but it was just like the challenge that happened throughout. It was just like, this isn't quite working. How do we kind of finesse it into something else? Just being nimble in that way was cool. So, I mean, from doing that, I really came to love like writing for games in a way that I hadn't exactly with other forms.
No, I love that. Really kind of brings a different perspective going into the game. And of course, you do have another credit to your name as lead narrative designer and writer for Eggnuts, Tales, Noir Preludes. Walk me through that.
I was just a narrative designer.
You were just a narrative designer. Okay.
Yeah.
Still.
Martin Hanses was the lead narrative. Yeah.
Now, kind of walk me through that project. That one was a little more recent. What was that experience like? As I'm sure it was quite different from the Low Road.
It was very different because with Low Road, it was like all the characters like I created based on like the designs that were already there, and everything was like my story. So I was like writing in someone else's voice and that was like an interesting position to be in, and where you are like, oh, how do you how do I get to be your AI? Like, how do I like achieve what you want while still bringing what I bring?
Right.
And that was an interesting process, and it was great working with Martin, and just helping develop that lore. But you also like, you're writing lore, like it was a sequel to or a prequel to a game that already existed, Tales Backbone. So there's so much that you need to know about the world and adapt that. I had a great time, but yeah, it was just like a lot of writing, like just a lot of dialogue writing. And
yeah.
And then the other game I made was Tales from Rebel Rush, which is more of a that came out like I think last year or the year before. It's a racing game set in that world, like where you're kind of doing parkour with cars. It's very silly and fun.
I love that. I wasn't familiar with that title. What more can you share about that experience?
I mean, that was just so fun because it was almost like a completed game. Our game designer, like, he just made this really fun, silly game, and we set it in the world of Tales Noir and just had like little fun dialogue in between to give it a story. So it was one of the easiest jobs I've ever had.
Love that.
Just make it silly.
Yeah. I guess looking back on those projects, is there any other particular like moments during the development or, even after the release that, that stood out, that kind of sticks with you, knowing like doing work for a game is that much more fun because of certain moments that occurred?
I mean, I'm going to go back to the Low Road because I that was the one I was most involved with. But definitely, like, what is different about games is you aren't experiencing the audience. You're rarely experiencing what the audience is getting unless you're watching like live streams or. But we went to GDC, and I really enjoyed watching people try the Low Road and just seeing when they would laugh, because it was like at different times. It was weird times. It was almost like before the joke would happen on screen, because they would realize they had the option to do this. And like, I'll give you an example. Like there's one situation where one of the characters won't do something because he's intimidated by this guy with like a great head of hair. It just feels inferior to him, which, right, what you know. And, there's one of the objects you can use is it's invisible ink, and if you combine it with the shampoo, the guy will use it in his hair, and then his hair will disappear, like cartoon logic. It was just great watching them, and they're playing it, and then they look at the invisible ink and they see that, and then like they'll laugh before they do it, and you're like, oh, it's the option. I think like that's one of the things in games. It's not so much the punchline, it's like the option to give them the opportunity. Like, I experienced this a lot when I was playing Disco Elysium. It wasn't the dialogue that was making me laugh. It was just like, oh, I can choose that dialogue. Like, you'd see that list of like 8 options, and you're just like, wow, that's a lot of choices, and they're all kind of funny and interesting. I can't believe there's this much variance. And like that's an interesting kind of comedy that no other form has, where it's the option that allows you to laugh instead of the reaction. Like, most comedy is reaction instead of
Right. Yeah, no. That's fair. I guess I'm curious, like, approaching the game writing aspect from that narrative standpoint, meshing it with something like, your stand-up work, which was sort of another component of your career. And, I'm kind of looking up a little bit about your career there. Your style is described consistently as dark, queer and confessional, if I got that right.
That's the branding. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the branding. I guess
that's what gets the audiences running towards me. Oh yeah, dark, queer, and conventional. Oh great.
I'm curious because like
I don't understand branding. I'm bad at it.
I mean, from just from a personal storytelling, maybe it's a vulnerability aspect, but what aspect of that branding, that stand-up approach, comedy writing, how does that mesh in your work when you approach things like games, or even just stand-up for that matter? Like, what's kind of diving in a little more into that branding piece.
I don't know if it does. When I write fiction, I like to write from like a challenge perspective. It's not the less that I'm in it, the better, because I think like those are often surface things as well.
Right.
That's just a way of quickly getting someone to know you. But I think like what actually shows up in your work is often not something you intended, and that's more revealing. Like, I mean, if you look at the movies of Stanley Kubrick, like he is making wildly different movies, insanely different genres, but they all kind of have the same core and feeling, and then it's like, oh, that's him. And I think like being like, oh, I'm a queer writer, oh, I'm a dark writer, oh, I'm a confessional, like that's just the surface. And I almost like to knee into like the genre or the challenge of what I'm doing. And I think like my real core will come out that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that does.
I mean, those things always inform. Like I love dark comedy.
Yeah.
All my favorite movies are dark comedies. All my favorite plays are dark comedy.
Never a dull moment.
Yeah. Well, and it's harder. It like, what is interesting about it, it's like horror, like you either succeed or you fail, and both are kind of interesting. Whereas like if you're just like, I'm making a drama, it's just like, well, this could be mid and we wouldn't even know. Like is what I like about comedy is if you fail, like there is egg on your face for failing, and you failed. Like writing something mediocre scares me. What writing something like terrible or great is like kind of the goal. I don't want to be tolerated. Who wants to be tolerated? The AI can be tolerated.
The AI is very tolerated. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That sticks. But I mean, I think where it really all clicks for me and really truly comes together for you as well, because we had talked about this before, the talk around crafting comedic moments in video games was something you talked about at Play NYC 2017, if I got that right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And off air, you mentioned it's near and dear to your heart. So I'm curious, why is it so challenging, do you think, at being funny in games? We kind of touched on it because obviously you don't have an audience in front of you, but kind of feel free to expand a little more on the challenge of that with games.
Well, okay. Comedy works on surprise, right?
Right. Timing's everything.
Yeah, and timing is everything. And you are relinquishing the timing to you're not there, like theater, the performer is there and they can react to how much they laugh. And if they're laughing a lot, they can give more. If they're not laughing that much,
you move on to the next.
Yeah, or like they damper it so they be more subdued, and maybe you'll get the laughs that way. But it is a dead engine. It is a dead engine pretending to be a live thing. And that is a real challenge because I think it was easier before. Like when I was talking about the LucasArts games, those are really funny games. And I would say most games I grew up with until like Doom and Quake, like were funny. They were all kind of funny. All those Sierra games, all those LucasArts games, they had like an element of humor. And it felt like, oh, this is like almost like a side comedy thing. And then once 3D came in, that went out the window because you were relinquishing timing. Everything was it was basically a movie that you interact with, right? And then once you bring 3D in, timing is thrown out completely because you could be looking in a direction, you're playing Spyro and there's a great gag here, but if you're looking in that direction, you're missing that gag.
Right.
And if you're not doing this at that exact time, like there's so much agency afforded to the player that it almost removes that dictatorial element that comedy kind of thrives on. Like you do need to be in control to get those jokes to work. And I think like the solution to that is to create an engine that is very reactive. And I think like low budget games do this way better than high budget games. I don't think like Portal's the only game I can think. Portal 2 is the only like AAA, really funny game with like surprising laughs in it. I mean, South Park's Stick of Truth, but that feels like an indie game. It just feels like, but I think you almost want to be reactive to every single option or moment that could happen. And I would almost look at it like crowd work with the way a comedian builds a crowd work set. They have like their jokes, but if they're like, there's some really great crowd work guys that I've sat and studied. And the first time you see it, you're just like, this is magic. He just picked this one person in the audience and like he brought him back and like he keeps bringing him back throughout the show. And he's got jokes that connect to this guy. And then he talked to this woman over there. And then like he combined, like, it feels like magic. And then you watch it a few times and you're like, oh, he goes to a different guy and does the exact same thing. You are doing sleight of hand, basically. And there are ways within gaming, within like, branching dialogue to do that. But it requires a lot of precision and a lot of effort and a lot of trial and error and so much game testing that I don't think people have patience to it. West of Loathing did that. But like when you look at that game, story is the main thing. It looks like garbage. It's literally stick figures. Have you played it?
No, I haven't.
It's great. But it's because it's low budget that they're able to do so many weird and creative things because it's all about just being responsive to the player. And I think that's the priority. I think like indie is way better at doing comedy now than AA or AAA because they have to have those long timelines. They need to look perfect. And it's the sloppiness that allows it to be comedic.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, I think like responsiveness and creating that illusion of someone reacting to you.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess from kind of coming from the writing aspect too, and because I feel like from doing stand-up and all that, there is that level of vulnerability, whether you're more introverted versus extroverted or vice versa. Do you think there's more of a need for more vulnerability to be factored in for narrative designers, or to provide those opportunities where, it can get to be more funny and it is being still authentic and it's not forced, knowing that it's part of the story that the player's not going to miss, if they're looking in a different direction? Or does the vulnerability piece play into any of it at all?
I think vulnerability in this situation, it would be just allowing the writers to fail multiple times to build something. And I think often with the pipeline of writing, it's like, just send me the Excel sheet and we're putting it in the game. We'll give you our notes and then we'll put it in the game. And I think like to make a truly great, funny game. And when you look at, you have to be involved in that process of trial and error and redoing it over and over again. And if you're just sending a document and not getting to see it in the engine and not being involved in that part of the process, you're not able to really refine the comedy. So you can write funny lines, you can write quippy Josh Whedon type lines, which is most comedy in games. But I would say the funniest games are made by people who are also on the design team. Like LucasArts, they were programmers. They were all artists. Teams were like 6 people. And this is why indies are better suited for it, because you have to be nimble. You have to wear a lot of hats. And West of Loathing, I think their team is like very small. And I think like he did the art and everything. What's that other game? Undertale? Very funny, but he is one guy.
Jeez.
So
yeah.
I think you, like, in terms of vulnerability, it's just that willingness to fail and not present. Because I think when you are presenting, like, here is my finished document, place it in your game, that's a dead thing.
Yeah.
And you're not able to simulate the liveness.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Well, on a more serious question, I
thought I wasn't funny.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Do you want me to get more boring? Let's get more pretentious, Cory.
Let's get more pretentious. Well, we'll see how pretentious this may sound.
Okay.
Do you see because I get the sense that, you obviously, you enjoy working on games and stuff. So naturally, I have to ask then, are you seeing yourself doing more game projects down the road?
I would love to.
And if so, how do you determine that yay or nay, I guess? Yeah.
I mean, people need money.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But ideally, I would want to work on something where I do get to be involved in that way. Like, I would love to be involved in a project where I get to be part of the design team and work with the engine and help build it from scratch, from the outset. So you can make something like, you know, Her Story or Papers, Please, like where it feels where narrative and mechanics are married. You know, you don't have that ludonarrative dissonance. Because I think comes from that process of writing, you know, where it's just like, let's bring in the writer after the fact. We made a cool level. Blah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, ideally, I would love to get experiences on AAAs, just like for the scope and like what I would learn from it. But I would love to work on more indies and like create original things instead of, you know, bios for swords.
The swords need the bios, yes, but there's so much
like,
more to do.
There are certain people that when they play the game, they're like, if I don't know where this sword was forged in, what kind of fire? This is ruining the game for me.
I don't like this sword anymore. Basically, if anyone's listening to this or watching this, then it is clear that you're open for recruitment for a game.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hopefully, if anyone's listening, Leif's ready to go.
Okay, great.
Leif's ready.
We just ended with begging. That's great. Like,
it's not. But wait, there's more. I feel like there seems to be a lot of investment in Edmonton, and you know, you've obviously been at the Fringe. You're going to be recording at the Grindstone. You've been part of X-Gen Studios. Been at Black Bar. Why here? What is it about this city that lets you thrive as a comedian, as a narrative designer? You know, why Edmonton?
I mean, it's home. I'm from Edmonton. My family's here. My parents are here. And it is a great scene. Like, especially for comedy, I will argue that it is the best scene to get good at comedy in. Because when I started, I was in New York and you would have to pay to go up. And it was just other comedians, no audience members. Because like audience members could go see like Jim Gaffigan for free at the UCB if they go on the right night. So no one's going to open mics. So you weren't getting any better because you're not being seen by audience. And when I moved back here, I was like, oh, wow, I can get up like 5-6 times a week in front of real audiences. And I was getting better so much more quickly. And like we have such a great scene here. And I mean, that kind of applies to all the art scenes here. It is people who are doing it because they care about the thing and not for the fame, because no one's getting famous and no one's making like a living off one art form alone.
Right.
So you are like surrounded by people who actually love the work, and that's really refreshing.
Yeah.
I mean, the winters suck, but yeah, whatever.
I mean, fair. Well, I guess I'm curious, like, you know, obviously you've probably have had the chance to potentially move out of Edmonton, like still being in Canada, whether it's, you know, Montreal. I've, you know, always watched the Just for Laughs thing on TV growing up, where Montreal was kind of the epicenter of that.
Yeah.
We talked before the show, you heading out to Vancouver with different things. Is it truly the scene here that's just kind of kept you like here and not wanting to move someplace else within Canada? Because obviously, like you said, New York's a whole different beast naturally, but you know, in terms of Canada, like, you know, having the different options, Edmonton seems to be it. And I am curious.
I mean, it's affordable.
Yeah.
As a base, like, because as a community, like, the goal is to be traveling as often as possible before they realize you're only funny for an hour. You are like a medicine showman. You're just like, I'm an interesting person for 1 hour. Goodbye. And then you leave. So you do need to be on the move. And as a base, I think Edmonton's great. I think it's like, I have so many friends here. It's a great community. Yeah. Starting over in a different place, that's hard. And I mean, everything's so unaffordable. So Edmonton's great in that aspect too. And there's arts funding. It's great. It's like, yeah.
I guess that's the one thing I've come to know is that over time, like you see it in the election cycles too, just the focus that is on everyone's mind, the art scene, the broader creative economy scene as a whole. You know, it's on the radar. It's not getting excluded, at least from my sense, because like I consider myself an outsider, so you know, maybe I'm wrong, but
I think we are wildly underappreciated in the national conversation.
That's fair. That's a fair
I think
point.
Like we have way better artists per capita than any other city, and we are often ignored. Like especially like on the comedy front, I go to other cities and we have really, really strong comedians here, and they're all very frustrated because they're not selected for like TV opportunities or anything like that, because they're just like, there is this Toronto idea where it's just like Alberta. But I think like, there is like a decade worth of like great comedians who have not been selected here. And that's a shame. But again, they are still doing it for the craft. And,
Absolutely.
In time, I think it'll pay off.
Yeah. Time will tell. Yeah. No, I love that. Coming back to the present here with this show, with this recording, where we talk about game development and esports as the two pillars of Good Game Edmonton. And so I'm curious, obviously some of the games in the esports arena are battle royales like Apex Legends, Battlefield, Fortnite. I'm curious from a narrative perspective, your take on, story-focused games when we have, obviously, these battle royales that continue to be so popular amongst younger people, and just still having the space to create these story-focused games. Are they in danger? Like I'm not necessarily ringing the alarm bells.
Different markets, right? I don't know anything. I don't know much about Fortnite. I'm
fair, meaning
too much of a millennial to know what that is. My sister plays it. She seems to have a fun time. But I think what is nice about those games is they bring a sense of connection between the players.
There is a sense of connection and community. Yes.
Yeah. And I think in the future, there will be narrative-based games that will create that sense of atmosphere. But it is a much different type of design, I think.
Right.
The people who are making the Hitman games are getting close to it.
Okay.
But I think if you could take that type of design and make it in a multiplayer type situation, that would be amazing. If you could create little story-based adventures for people to experience live.
Yeah.
Or even, like dungeon masters, like paid dungeon masters who within a game, or they won't do that. They'll do the AI version. It won't be as good. But I mean, there's so many people with improv degrees who spend years and years doing improv. I would love to see a game where paid improvisers are dungeon masters for a group of people and, control where the narrative goes. I think that's a huge opportunity with game studios. There's so many different areas where, that can go. I think we just aren't there yet. I think we're at the primitive form where it's just okay, you're basically playing Counter-Strike, which is cool and fun. But how do we make a narrative game out of that? I think that's totally doable and will be really interesting and exciting.
I really hope you get your hands on one of those opportunities, because I feel like it feels like you got something cooking up that you could make something work.
I'm just
there.
A windbag, that's all.
I mean, Leif, I was trying to give you the benefit of the doubt, but okay, bud. Okay.
Well, so this is where the confessional part comes out.
This is where all the EA money is going to. There we go.
But don't you think that would be possible? To make a live... I mean, people are doing it verbally.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, because I kind of draw the parallels of, those group game, a little off base, but maybe it's sort of that group game night where it's a whodunit. You're going back to the times of playing Clue with your friends.
An evening of murder where everyone plays a part. Remember those?
Yeah.
You can make a live version of that within a game if you just create that structure.
So I'm curious. Well, and so then I'm curious then, obviously having your experience working on games, do you have a sense as far as why haven't they tried to do it yet? They seem to be very experimental when it comes to the Battle Royale, because that was just kind of a fluke around COVID. Yeah. And then ever since, it's kind of hit or miss. They keep adding on. People are trying to not lose that formula. But at the same time, it's for this narrative piece to be engaging and bring in this extra layer, why do you think we're not there yet, like you said, but
I think to them, it doesn't seem as repeatable as that, because the fear with narrative is once you've done it, it's over. But I think we've seen through deck builder games, you can make a very compelling narrative that is repeatable. It just needs a shakeup of the elements. I mean, Among Us is kind of that. Among Us is a primitive version of that.
Okay.
It's just a repeatable narrative kind of game where, it's very basic, but the narrative is created by the tension between you and the other players and the arguments that happen in that game room in between.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot more to do, because I mean, I'd love to bring a group of people when I'm playing something as story driven and historically fact finding of stuff like Assassin's Creed, but it's it's only a single player where it's but people play a battle royale because they get to go play with their friends. Trying to find that fun narrative piece where it's oh my God, oh, we got to go over there. Oh no, did you find the sword?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But I don't have as much narrative background like you, but I'm trying here. I'm curious where it could land because it seems like an obvious opportunity, and I'm curious to see if any of these, whether it's at this point, it'll have to be a new game entirely, unless if they
I think so.
realize, oh, maybe we try something in these. But I get the sense they got the popularity, they got people bought in.
Yeah,
They're not going to change the formula.
The reason they haven't done that is because this is working right now.
Yeah.
And eventually, when they get bored, then they'll start experimenting. No one really, given the nature of capitalism, like you just double down. You don't take a risk, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I think like the most creative studios of all time have done that. Like they're like, why would you make a game like that?
Yeah.
After that, and it's because they know to, find the next thing, not just stay where the puck is.
Well, you make a good point because, like, indie studios are definitely continuing to be on the rise. There's a lot more passionate community. It feels like that is the perfect community for something to be made, whether it's competitively to become on the road to becoming an esport maybe, but at least having that or not competitive level, but like the fun multiplayer component with some narrative that adds that substance to it so that there's a little more to it. And you can't just go out guns blazing. You have to actually take a minute, think about what's in front of you in the game and realize, oh, we have to actually like put our thinking caps on. Like it feels like an escape room where we actually have to kind of like work together and really communicate and understand how do we get to from point A to point B. And then that creates a whole new conversation of games and the this new interactive element of communication, teamwork, and all of that. One of the things I continue to fight through this show of the legitimacy around games, and that they're not just a waste of time or anything. There's a lot behind it. There's jobs that are helping make this game to these opportunities for players to grow as individuals. So yeah, that's my TED talk for that. But yeah, no, I'm curious, like anything to say on any of that at this point, do you think? Or
yeah, I think time will tell. I think like it will probably come out of the indie sphere as most innovations do.
Right.
It does feel like indie is just a farm team for the AAAs. Like they just take whatever is there and cynically recreate it with a much better polish, and then the rest of the world gets to see about it. That's just how it works. But I think it'll probably happen in the VR world if that continues, because you're already seeing elements of it with Quest. It does seem to be like, especially I have friends that they have like teen children, and they spend their lives on it. Like they're just in there hanging out with all these people, and like an escape room kind of situation for them is fun.
Yeah.
And I think like you can just develop organically out of that. It's just like, how do we make it like a world where you can explore? And yeah,
that's that next phase of games that we're not there yet, but it's coming. And
yeah, the seeds are there. Sure.
No, it's exciting. It's exciting. Well, despite I feel like we went on several tangents, but I appreciated you going along for the ride with me nonetheless on this. But needless to say, I'd say this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Leif. I still wish we filmed a lot of your bits, your opening monologue and stuff at AGS, because
I do too. It was fun.
I'm trying to go back because I was like, I had my notebook taking notes of like what people were talking about, but I'm like, I look around, I'm like, there's no video camera, and I'm like, Leif's got my attention. Like, this is fun. Like, this isn't one of those boring like kind of intros of like, welcome to AGS and say hello to our sponsors. Like, no, like it was that storytelling element.
Yeah, I was cosplaying as Conan O'Brien. I was trying to.
I loved it. I loved it. It was great. Gingers unite, I guess. I don't know. Well, I really appreciate it nonetheless. I'll give you the moment now to beg people. Where can people expect to find your new comedy album, Lone Ranger?
Oh, okay. So I am recording my new comedy album on December 5th at the Grindstone Theater. There's a 7 p.m. and a 9 p.m. show. And it's basically the greatest hits of like everything I've done in comedy so far. It's my first album. So it should be a great night. And yeah, if you'd like to see what my comedy is like, it's probably the best opportunity to do so. And then after that, it'll probably show up on Spotify or, once it's all edited. That won't be until the new year.
Okay. You're not going it completely old school and putting it on vinyl, are you? I'm a vinyl collector, so
I don't think there's a lot of people wanting to hear a man speak on vinyl. Like, oh, it's such a warm sound.
We could take a cue from Chris. He talked about, we'll do this one talk where we'll put on some smooth jazz and, just kind of take it from there. Yeah. You could always
I did a show last night where they had like music playing during the show, and it changes your timing. It's very exciting. Yeah.
You do like that?
I think it would be interesting to do for like longer bits that are a bit more long-winded but lead to something instead of like having to be punch, punch, punch.
Yeah. Well, aside from a Lone Ranger, where can folks go to see where you're going to be live next or what you're working on next? Or to just reach out?
I'm most active on Instagram. It's at LeifOC, LEIFOC. And I'm on TikTok as well, but not as active on there. And you can go to leifoc.com. My email's on there if you want to reach out. I'm also on LinkedIn, like every game developer person. Yeah.
Love it.
That's how we communicate. Yeah.
No, all good. No.
We're in each other's network.
We're in each other's network. There we go. Well,
the truest bond.
Yeah, the truest bond. Our network grows. Well, thank you so much, Leif. We'll put all those links, handles in the show notes, of course. But I will say that this is the conclusion of our show. Be sure to catch my conversation with Leif at goodgameyeg.ca or wherever you listen to podcasts. Share with a friend, coworker, relative, enemy, your network, whoever. It goes a long way. And of course, if I can just say one last thing for everybody before we go, don't always take things so seriously. Have fun. Be vulnerable. Trust me, it's tough, but not impossible. Food for thought. Until next time, Sellarcast out.
Let's see here. Kovacs. Numi Kovacs. Graduated top of her class, where she majored in hand-to-hand combat and field-based recon, but was passed over for government placement due to a total disregard for menial tasks. Working the corporate spy beat since early this morning? Wow. First day on the job and you're already looking for a new one.
Let me explain.
Please. I know the kind of dregs that place draws. Surprised they hired someone like you in the first place. Turn's basically running a call center over there, isn't he?
A real spy is someone who gets their information undetected and unseen. No better way to do that than through a telephone.
And the rest of his crew? There's that dim-witted yokel they have working the field.
I had every pocket made up with 2 sleeves. That way no one can pickpocket me without raising rucks. I call it the double decker. Might even get a patent for it after I retire.
And then there's Thornton, one of the strongest arguments against nepotism I've ever met.
You want me to quit?
Quit, step down, early retirement without benefits. Why get hung up on titles?
And that relic they have working in supplies. If only he spent as much time on his work as his rhymes.
You need gadgetry, you come to me. Forgery too, I'll make you an honorary degree.
Something about the job, I guess. Ripping off the work of innocence doesn't exactly attract the most trustworthy people.
So, you gonna hire me or what?
Not with your experience. Look, I don't envy you. Lining the pockets of the wealthy isn't anyone's idea of taking the high road. But if you want to build a name for yourself, you've got to make the most of the path you're already on.
And what path is that?
I think you know.